Do you want to do the intro today?
Welcome to the Healthy Rebellion Radio. Thanks for joining the rebellion.
Very nicely done. I like it. Hello, wife.
Hello, Hubs.
What is new in your
I'm just
amazing world?
still laughing because we always test our audio at the beginning of these things. And,
We save a few of them. Some of them are so bad
we're just testing, make sure the microphone sounds good, the audio, the video, everything's working so that we don't record a whole episode and have it not take. Like we've had that happen
done that before
in the past. And so we were kind of doing a Hub's wife rap thing.
Yeah, and I deleted that one. That one will not see the light of day. We have a couple of good ones though that we maybe April Fools.
We might have to
type stuff.
Yeah, we might have to drip them out somewhere.
Yes,
but not today.
So
what's our topic for today, babe?
So the news topic piece, is this the right one?
I believe
the
so.
Delish study?
The Delish study.
So the Delish study is super interesting, recently released. We have links to that in the show notes. The Diabetes Education to Lower Insulin Sugars and Hunger, the Delish study. Really well done study. They weren't trying to be like mega ketogenic. So the main advice that they made was to reduce starchy carbohydrate sources. So they didn't freak out a ton about fruit. They definitely didn't freak out a ton about veggies. People tended to be right about that 0.3 millimolar level in ketosis, which for some in the keto scene, they would say that that's non-efficacious and of no benefit. But what they found is that people actually really enjoyed this. Folks maintained or increased the amount of fiber that they were eating pre-intervention. So to the degree that there's some issues around, fiber and gut microbiome, that seemed to be a non-issue. They really got in and looked at the lipidology of these folks and looked at the reality that for some people, this ketogenic intervention dramatically improves blood lipid profile by just about anybody's definition. For some people, though, it makes it worse. And what's interesting is for some folks, it looked like red meat independent of saturated fat may be a problem. Now, the interesting thing about this is we've seen in the clinic at Specialty Health, when people embark on a change like this, sometimes the first 6 months, their blood lipids are a disaster. This one didn't run a significant period of time like that. And so
it's hard to know if that's really the state of things or if there's something going on in this interim, beginning phase.
Yeah.
And it might correct itself
itself down the road. We oftentimes saw that, and it actually goosed us to go from an initial visit and then 3-month follow-up. We punted the 3 month to 6 months because people would look better, they would feel better, their libido was better, everything was great, but their blood lipids appeared to have gone in the toilet
at the 3-month mark.
At the 3-month mark.
Gotcha.
And so by punting it to the 6-month mark, things tended to normalize when you're offloading a lot of lipid material because you're burning fat. Some kind of wacky things can happen with your lipidology, but it is something, again, clearly we are fans of red meat. We're advocating for this ruminant-driven, regenerative ag system and everything. But even then, you just can't, because this is kind of an inconvenient finding, you can't just bury that and try to make it go away because it just festers and grows and it blocks our ability to understand what's going on. So the takeaway for me around this is if you are one of these folks that red meat at, say, that 6-month mark, we're still seeing elevated LDL particle count, particularly the small dense variety, and we see discordance. So it's really important to check this stuff in an appropriate way, where we're seeing a high lipoprotein count relative to cholesterol levels. Then we might consider doing more fish or chicken, or just the leaner cuts of beef may or may not be all that compelling of an issue because it appeared to occur independent of saturated fat, which is interesting. But it's one of these things that we'll kind of keep an eye on. And again, it's another layer of this is, let's say you just really like eating this way. Let's say you eat carnivore and you do feel best on ruminants, but we have some lipoproteins that we don't necessarily love. It's just not textbook great stuff. then we can do a CIMT, we can do a coronary calcium score, and we can at least see, is there a disease process right now? And if not, then let's monitor that yearly and kind of see how things go. But we do have a lot of other tricks in the toolbox, even on the supplement level, making sure that you have a mix of vitamin E and vitamin E-like precursors in the diet, so that can dramatically improve lipid profiles in some folks. Panathine helps other people. So there are things that can be done to mitigate this scenario, but really well done study. It's worth reading. It's very accessible, even for kind of more the lay populace.
Just continues to highlight the fact how everybody's different, and one size fits all dietary recommendations are failing us. Yeah, we can't rely on one size fits all recommendations. Right.
And, a lot of people report that they feel better on keto, like they just had better appetite control and everything. So this is where it becomes, you almost need to create a pro-con list for the individual, what are the pros for doing this currently, both objective and subjective, and then what are the cons, and then we can make some informed decisions around it. I really wish that, there was nothing untoward here, and we could just motor right forward and just have a religious doctrine like the vegans, that this is the one damn way that works for everybody. But that's just not the way the world works. And I'm pretty steadfast in even when something like this is overall a very favorable study for keto in general, and a very relaxed keto. It's just cut out the really starchy, dense carbohydrate sources, and people tend to spontaneously reduce caloric intake. They get great blood glucose control. That is one thing, the blood glucose levels in these folks dramatically improved. So there were improvements kind of across the board. Blood pressure improved, a bunch of other things improved, which again makes the total risk analysis of elevated lipoproteins in a lower blood sugar environment, in an environment with lower average blood pressure. How does that square out? We don't really know yet, but this is why we can fall back on some of the tests for active disease process to at least establish a benchmark and also make some informed decisions around that.
Excellent.
That's what I've got there.
Well, folks, our show sponsor today is Elemental Labs and their electrolyte drink mix, Element Recharge. Element Recharge was intentionally formulated for folks following a low-carb or ketogenic diet, and for people who train hard and don't want the sugar found in most commercial electrolyte beverages. With 100 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium per serving, Element Recharge has everything you need and nothing you don't. Now, Cassandra says, I was waiting for you to interject some sort of quippy thing,
but I had nothing. You're
nothing
just
came.
killing it.
I was giving you a pause.
No,
but
you're doing a great job.
So Cassandra says, I have tried every sugar-free electrolyte out there. If you are keto or carnivore and trying to avoid any sweetness of any kind, the unflavored Element are bomb, especially when added to sparkling mineral water. Rob, have you seen that? There's that. A lot of people are trying to add a packet of Element to a Topo Chico. It's like an Element challenge, Topo Chico challenge. Have you seen that?
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of high school chemistry where stuff goes geysering out of containers.
I think it's like fourth grade volcano making.
Yeah. I tried it. I didn't succeed. I don't have the patience.
Maybe
I want
Cassandra
both the
did.
Topo Chico and the Element. So what I end up doing in that scenario is just putting it all in a big mason jar. And
you're a mason jar guy.
Yeah.
Well, if any of you want to try that, you can hashtag LMNT challenge and throw that up on Instagram or somewhere, and we'd like to see your attempt. Danny says, after sampling my girlfriend's Element stash, I knew I had to have it for bigger August outdoor festivities. It was great during the 3-day Outside Lands Music Festival, but instrumental during an 8-day, 100-mile trek along the John Muir Trail. It has become a staple for my summer endurance activities, races, etc.
Nice.
Which is super cool. Super cool. 8 days, 100 miles. You can check out.
We've driven that far before. It exhausted us, but we did.
We got there a little faster than 8 days, though. All right. You guys can check out Element Recharge at drinkelement.com. That's drinklmnt.com. All right. Should we jump into our Q&A questions? The best questions on the internet from you folks, our listeners.
Yep. Perfect.
So our first question today is from Bree on blood donation snacks. Bree says, I donate platelets most every week. The snack options offered are never keto friendly. What are some snacks I can bring that can help with recovery that won't kick me out of keto?
Real simply off the top of my head, like salted nuts, jerky, those things would be great. I wouldn't worry so much about being kicked out of ketosis, but I mean, just reasonable snacks to have. Both of those would be great because they have some sodium, so it's going to help with the fluid retention, and they taste good. They're portable, good shelf life. If you leave them in the car for a couple of days, maybe they're still alive. Depending on the heat that you have and all that type of stuff. But that seems like a good option.
It's been a while since I've donated blood, but it seems like it was always like orange juice or some sort of super sugary substance.
Typically, yeah.
Is there a reason for that, or that's
people
just...
get low? It can be stressful. People experience a hypovolemic state because they just remove some blood volume. The apheresis pulling out the platelets, I assume. That stuff still occupies space, so that's going to be a little bit of a deal. And some people get a little stressed and worked up, and so they can have some kind of hypoglycemia or just kind of a vagal response where they can pass out or at least feel lightheaded. But I kind of feel like something a little salty like jerky or salted nuts would be kind of a robust thing to have after that to perk you back up.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Our next question is from Steve, and he wants to know if it's okay to work out while you're still sore. Steve says, Dr. Doug McGuff wrote a book about exercising and says to allow yourself to recover before working out again. If not, you stop the recovery process. I just read your post, which said three times per week. Maybe he's saying you should work
Probably
out 3 times.
Training,
or your training
update.
Okay.
Yeah.
I am 71 years old and in the past did CrossFit twice a week for 5 years. If someone works out while they are still sore, do they lose some of the recovery benefits? Thanks for all you do for the health community.
Man, this is Steve. This is a really good question, and it's interesting. So we have to remember that there's a lot of different training stimuli available. We have like kind of a bodybuilding type hypertrophy process that we could do, kind of high volume, short rest periods. You could do a purely neurological based strength workout where it's like 10 sets of 2 with a 5-minute rest between each set. And doing something like that was really where my powerlifting took off. It took 3 hours to do a workout and you would do things like doing some crunches or calf raises or things in between just to like fill some of the time. But if you really want to get super, super strong, particularly at a set body weight level, it's mainly a neurological based story. Body composition is great too. The more muscle you have at a given weight, the better. But that's a totally different stimulus than a bodybuilding type stimulus. And both of those are totally different than an interval training, thing on an air bike or, steady state cardio. So just saying training, this is kind of it's a little bit hard to unpack. And if you look at, kind of classic training routines, you might do a strength workout one day, a cardio workout the next, a neuro-based, weight training activity on the next day. So I wouldn't say that soreness specifically is going to negate the ability to get additional adaptation. But all of this should be within the context. What's tough here, and this is the benefit of the live call-in show, because I could ask some questions. What's Steve's goal? Like, what does he want to do? Because it's like, okay, you're training for what? And where are you today? And so all of those things could provide, if it's just general fitness, and what he said, he's 71, so he's like, just wants to avoid the reaper and, look good naked and all that stuff.
Maintain muscle mass and be strong. And
then, 2 or 3 days a week of a full body strength training program. And then in between those, maybe 1 day of intervals, 1 day of steady state cardio, and then just being totally, active and running around as much as you can. That seems totally reasonable in this context with appropriate volume and intensity on the training days. You can also go old school bodybuilder split deal where 1 day is upper body, the next day is lower body. And even, so you could do a vertical press, vertical pull on day 1, some sort of a hinge or a squat on day 2, Maybe day 3, you do some conditioning. And then on day 4, you do a horizontal press and a horizontal pull. And then, if you hinged the first day, then you squat the second go around. Just a lot of different ways to slice and dice that. And the variety there is great for just making progress over time and just not doing the same damn thing every single training session. I get bored doing what I'm doing. I'm kind of a 2-day-a-week full body deal, but that's kind of the most streamlined. I do that to allow me to do everything else that I want to do. So it's kind of like taking cod liver oil as a little kid or something. It's like, I just got to do this. Like, I don't necessarily enjoy it that much. Try to have some good music. I maybe have some jiu-jitsu training videos going in the background, but it's just something I've got to kind of grind through and get done. And man, that was a long answer to a pretty short question. But can you think of anything else on there? I mean, the context around what Steve wants to do would be really helpful in determining, well, how would we slice and dice this program?
Well, and to your point, and Michael Rutherford has a saying, stimulate, don't annihilate. So if you're stimulating and you're doing training, your recovery.
That's a great point. He mentions that he did CrossFit twice a week.
Right.
For 5
And when
years.
I saw that, it's like, it's really hard to know what you're getting,
Right.
What that means, because CrossFit gyms vary widely in the type of programming that they offer. So you could be in a box that's, you're doing crazy volume every single day of the week, or you could be
which could cripple you
which
for
could
the
cripple
5
you,
days,
and your recovery would be
terrible.
shit, and you would be or you could be in one that smartly programs both mobility work, strength work, metabolic conditioning.
It surveys you when you come in the door. Hey, how you feeling today? Oh, I feel terrible. I can barely
Works
sit
within
down,
your limitations. Doesn't
Yeah.
recommend an exercise that you're physically not able to do properly.
Right.
Lots of things.
Yeah. So that wasn't. I'm glad you mentioned that, because that had popped up too. Like the 2-day-a-week CrossFit is probably just enough to be perpetually sore and not actually make that much progress.
It depends. Again,
it
if he was in a really
Yeah.
strength, depending on the gym that
How
you're
it's
in.
set up.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, let's move on to our next question from Oysin on the dark art of weight gain. Hi, Rob and Nikki. I'm really enjoying you guys going back to the Q&A format and have been a fan for over 5 years.
Nice.
And my life and health is so much better thanks to adopting the paleo way of life. And then he says, kisses the cover of the paleo solution. My question is about weight gain. Yes, gain. I didn't mean to say loss. I really mean I am actively trying to gain weight. I'm 29, 6'2", and about 170 pounds, so very tall and slim. I eat lowish carb paleo with a high carb dinner, usually sweet potatoes, and rice. Yes, devil non-paleo nightshades and grains, post-jiu-jitsu training. I also have a snack of about 2 handfuls of nuts a day and usually 1 piece of fruit. I train 4 times a week and strength train 2 days a week. I would love to put on about 10 pounds or so of relatively lean muscle mass.
You and every other guy alive.
I have tried this a number of times over the years, but always run out of steam after a few weeks of little progress. Plus now, since going lowish carb a year or 2 ago, I'm worried about deranging my blood sugar, and if overeating for a few weeks or months will age me 20 to 30 years and cause my telomeres to spontaneously combust.
We might have to get this guy off the internet at some point.
He's 29. He doesn't want to be 59 yet. I would love to hear any advice you have on convenient, safer ways of gaining some weight. My main reasons now for gaining muscle mass is BJJ performance and longevity. As you and others frequently say, strength and muscle mass do wonders for aging, and I'm trying to optimize that while my youthful hormone profile is still around. Thanks for everything. P.S. I know the answer is to eat more and be patient, but please, God, don't say that and give me some tips that require less effort. LOL.
Sounds like he's looking for a biohack.
He might be. And we know Rob's thoughts on biohacks. Yeah. Rob, is there a hack?
There is biohacking. It's taking a machete to a cow pie. And then beyond that, there's just things that work and things that don't. John Welborn and I have talked about this a lot, and people will probably want to murder us, but it is easier to lose weight than to gain weight in a healthy body composition kind of format, particularly if you're these like tall, lanky, lean gainer type people. I'm a little bit on that fast metabolism side. My body just kind of, the set point is like 165, maybe 175 if I'm really like lifting weights consistently, food consistent. But this isn't like jamming a ton of food down my pie hole. But the only time I got I competed in powerlifting at 181, which was about 10 pounds heavier than what I usually run around. And for a very brief period of time, I got up to 198. And then like I literally, it was like falling off a cliff. I was back down to 181 within like 2 or 3 weeks after that. It was crazy. I put so much work, so much effort into that, because for my height, if I could have got to like the 198 weight and stabilized, had good body composition, I could have probably made a pretty good go of a powerlifting career. Just your strength curve kind of improves with the cross-sectional diameter of the muscles and all that stuff. But I was miserable night and day. Like I had to eat at every 2.5 hours, and I wasn't even hungry. I would have like a gag reflex from it. Like there's just kind of a reality that I think in scenarios like this, the best option is to just have a really what on earth was
I
that?
know, closing it out. Sorry.
Having a really well-constructed strength training program so that you are increasing the total load that you're able to move, squat, deadlift, press, bench press, row, chin, all that stuff, and try to progress that over time, and then just eat and fuel yourself really well. And also, like if he's...
It sounds like his main goals are BJJ performance and longevity and health. And so like muscle, I mean, that doesn't mean you have to put on a lot of muscle, right? It just means that you need to be...
You just need some. Yeah. And if you are strength training, if you're doing something like gymnastics bodies plus some squatting and deadlifting, like you're going to be pretty good on that. The funny thing about this stuff is the literature suggests that the strongest people tend to live the longest, but this doesn't mean that world's strongest man competitors live longer than anybody else. There's a very steep declining return on this. It's just that people who are physically active and not heading down this metabolically broken track of sarcopenia, muscle mass loss, bone mass loss, that's the thing that we're trying to avoid. It doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be an amateur bodybuilder to have effective aging. And
so if he just continues to strength train, continues to try to put weight on the bar and progress over time.
And then just eat well. And the one thing I was going to say, like, it sounds like he eats kind of low carb paleo. I would, if he's limiting the amount of calories he's eating and isn't a low carb way of eating an amazing way of limiting caloric intake because you're just not as hungry. If he has good blood glucose control, then maybe he adds more carbs than just one meal a day. And then that might allow him to eat a little bit more food overall. And then when he gets old and beaten down and broken like I am, then he can kind of dial that stuff back, like kind of follow the Michael Rose suggestions of as you get a little bit older, kind of shifting more paleo, more specifically. I will say this too. It's interesting, even though I'm almost 50, I'm going to be 48 here in a couple of weeks.
Couple months.
It's interesting. Like I don't get huge by any means, and this could be because I've trained for years, but I feel like if I'm just kind of consistent, like I'll put some muscle mass back on. Like I even at this rap old age, if I'm just consistent and I log the time, the sleep is good, I'll pop up 5-8 pounds of muscle as long as I'm consistent. And so I think there's an interesting opportunity. Yeah, he mentioned the youthful hormones, but there's another side to this. Your metabolism not being so hot and fast, you can get a little bit more mileage out of what you are eating when you're older. So I don't know that it's, don't wait to get old so that you can eat less to possibly gain muscle. But I kind of notice that. Like I definitely don't feel like I need to eat as much as I did in the past to be able to make some type of headway. But this is also in the context of having trained for 30 years and I've been at heavier body weights before. So this is a place that my body has been to before. So there's a lot of different moving parts there. But yeah, I would just stay consistent and try to... one thing, like Greg Glassman had this saying ages ago, was, if you could clean and jerk your body weight 21 times in a row, do 50 dead hang chins, do a triple body weight deadlift, a 2.5 times body weight back squat, you're gonna look pretty good. Like you've got plenty of go in that context. And so that's where kind of orienting this stuff on the performance side as the kind of primary focus will allow you to secondarily get to probably better body composition and more muscle. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. We have a question from Jordan about glycine at night. Hi, Rob and Nikki. Longtime listener and current consumer of Element. The product is amazing and really helps when I eat low carb and train. Recently, after hearing you talk about glycine, I started taking 3 to 5 grams at night. Doing so really seems to help with sleep onset time and deep sleep, which I track with an Oura ring. I'm wondering if taking glycine in isolation is something I should be careful with. Also, a second somewhat related question. When I attempt keto, I experience dizziness when standing. Is this due to an electrolyte imbalance, or is this a warning sign that I'd be better off avoiding keto? Thanks again for all you and your family do.
So we'll tackle the second question first. More than likely, the dizziness, lightheadedness is from inadequate electrolytes, specifically sodium. 5 grams a day is kind of the bare minimum. Some people do 2, 3, 4 times more.
Working up to that, though.
Yeah, working up to that.
Don't just jump right there.
Good point. Disaster pants is never a good time. And then on the glycine, I really can't see any downside to doing most amino acids. Like people use arginine for trying to goose growth hormone release, and it's kind of marginal in its efficacy. Some people feel like they get some benefit from it. In general, I can't really see much of a downside to doing this. Branched chain amino acids, Luis has really educated me on this. Not really a fan. Branched chain amino acids are important in the context of eating whole protein or in taking something like whey protein isolate, for example. It's definitely good stuff. You definitely want the anabolic signaling from the branched chain amino acids. But when people just supplement branched chain amino acids, it doesn't really seem to do much of anything. But that the one thing that I have noticed that it will do is those branched chain amino acids will compete with phenylalanine or tryptophan going through the blood-brain barrier and producing serotonin, melatonin production. So branched chain amino acids later in the day can disturb sleep. That's kind of the only caveat that I could think of here. But to Jordan's specific point about glycine, I can't really think of any downside to this supplementation. And if he's getting better sleep out of it, which that is one of the reported benefits, then man, full steam ahead, keep doing it. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Our last question this week is from David on dental health and keto. Rob, I'm the type of person that is blessed with naturally healthy and strong teeth, historically. I went 43 years without a cavity. This year I had one, which to me seems totally ironic. I've been low carb keto for the past 18 months and generally don't eat sweets even when I'm off the plan. Generally in the sense that there were probably a few times throughout the year where I indulged in something sugary and sweet, but that would be much less typical than prior to 18 months ago. Mainly I'm eating a whole foods-based ketogenic diet of meat and veggies. All of this said, are there concerns for this way of eating around dental health? Thinking calcium, but not a doctor or a dentist or anyone capable of understanding root cause analysis in this area. Pun intended. Root cause. Anyway, love the show. Keep up the good work. David.
You would like that one. A good friend of ours, Matthew Stanbridge, is the keto dentist, and generally what we find with folks is better dental health with a reduction in carbohydrate intake, particularly refined carbohydrates. Maybe one of the limitations of paleo is that we're not getting enough vitamin K2, because usually dairy products are kind of a source there. You have to do some liver or, maybe some other things to be able to get that topped off. In general, though, if you're eating a pretty mixed diet and the vitamin D, vitamin K2 is adequate, your body will figure out how to retain whatever calcium that you're getting in the system. You don't necessarily need to do heroic efforts there. I don't know. Somebody, though, a long time ago, and I can't remember if we answered this on a podcast or it was one of those things where it looks good, but I like the amount of research kind of bogged me down. But they mentioned that they noticed that although they generally feel better, that they were getting a little bit more like tartar buildup from low carb, that they had noticed it, particularly on the inside of the teeth. I do think some people, when they go low carb, their fluid volume is less and they may salivate less. And when we salivate, there are enzymes that protect our teeth that are antimicrobial. If you get geeked out on the Weston A. Price stuff, like if you have super high K2 levels, then you maybe pull calcium out of your saliva and it gets reassociated into the teeth and they repair. Like, I'm not too sure about that, but there's some claims around that stuff. But if folks are too low in sodium, that can be a stress, which can reduce saliva production, and then it's low blood volume. And so that's going to negatively affect saliva production. You're just going to be kind of dry mouth. So funny enough, I think that the electrolytes are to the degree that this could, low carb or keto could be a problem for dental health. I would go out on a limb and say that it would be more due to electrolytes as probably a primary issue. If you don't produce enough saliva, your mouth is still wet, but you don't have the same antimicrobial activity going on. And so then, even though you overall are eating fewer things that could be the backbone for creating dental caries, there's still enough there that it could happen because the saliva is decreased. So maybe we'll reach out to Dr. Stanbridge and see if we can get some follow-up on that. Maybe we'll rope him into being a call-in or something, and we do some dental health related stuff. But
that would be great.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think that was our last question. Do you have anything else you want to?
I've got nothing.
You got nothing? All right. Well, that's a wrap, folks. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Healthy Rebellion Radio. Remember to check out our show sponsor, Element Recharge, at drinklmnt.com. And please subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And let's see, what else? Oh,
folks,
if you want to jump in to the Healthy Rebellion community, go to join.thehealthyrebellion.com.
Hope to see y'all there. Take care.
Bye.